The great hall of Ashbourne Keep was full of light and noise on the night Kale was crowned Alpha King. Torches burned along the stone walls. Wolves from every corner of the Northern Territory stood shoulder to shoulder, waiting for the moment their new king would name his mate. It was tradition. A king without a queen was seen as a king without roots, and roots were what held a pack together when storms came. Kale stood at the front of the hall, tall and steady, his dark hair still damp from the ceremonial washing. He did not smile, though everyone expected him to. He had spent his whole life preparing for this night, yet now that it had arrived, something in his chest felt heavy instead of light. Beside the raised platform stood Sable Voss, daughter of the Voss pack, the king's closest rival in strength and land. Her people had crossed the border 3 days ago, under a banner of peace, carrying gifts and promises. Everyone in the hall knew why she was there. Everyone except, perhaps, Sable herself. The pack elders had arranged it months earlier. A marriage between Kale and Sable would end generations of tension between their two lands. It made sense on paper. It solved problems that armies could not. But paper does not feel fear, and paper does not stand in front of a crowd wondering if her whole life is about to be decided for her. When the moment came, Kale turned to her and lifted the crown between his hands. It was old, made of pale silver, shaped like curling branches. It had been worn by every queen of his bloodline for 300 years. "Sable Voss," he said, his voice carrying through the silent hall, "will you stand beside me as queen of these lands?" The hall waited. Someone near the back exhaled loudly, as if the tension itself needed release. Sable looked at the crown, then at Kale, then at the rows of watching faces. Her father stood near the front, his jaw tight, clearly expecting her to bow her head and accept. It was the only outcome anyone had imagined. "No," she said. The word landed like a stone dropped into still water. A ripple of gasps spread outward. Kale's hands did not move, but something behind his eyes shifted, like a door quietly closing. "I will not take a crown I have not earned," Sable said, louder now, so the whole hall could hear, "and I will not become a peace treaty wearing a dress. If our people want to stop fighting, then let them choose peace because they believe in it, not because two strangers were pushed together and told to call it love." She did not wait for a reply. She turned and walked out of the hall, her boots striking the stone floor in sharp, steady beats, while 300 wolves stood frozen behind her. Kale lowered the crown. He said nothing, but later that night, alone in his chambers, the anger came. Not loud anger, quiet anger, the kind that sits in the stomach and does not leave. He told himself it did not matter. She was proud, that was all. Pride made people say foolish things in front of crowds. He would let her go home to her father's land, and in time, the pack elders would find another arrangement. That was what he told himself, as he lay awake staring at the ceiling. But sleep would not come, and by the time the moon reached its highest point, a messenger arrived at his door, with news that changed everything. The messenger was an old wolf named Ferris, one of the few who had served both Kale's father and grandfather. His face was pale, and his hands shook slightly as he spoke. "My king," Ferris said, "there is something you must know about the Voss girl's refusal. It was not only pride." Kale sat up. "Speak plainly." Ferris hesitated, then told him a story buried for decades. Long before Kale was born, his grandfather had made a secret deal with the Voss pack, one that betrayed a third pack entirely, a group of wolves who had once lived peacefully on the border between the two territories. That third pack had been driven from their land, their homes burned, their name erased from the histories that both the Ashbourne and Voss packs told their children. In exchange for silence, the Voss family had received land and protection. It was a debt paid in secrecy, a wound that never healed because no one was allowed to speak of it. "Sable found the old records," Ferris said. "She has known for weeks. She could not stand beside you and accept a crown, built partly on her own family's silence. She feared that if the truth surfaced after the marriage, it would be seen as an act of war, and blood would follow." Kale's chest tightened. "Where is she now?" Ferris's face grew even more troubled. "She left an hour ago, not toward her father's land, toward the forbidden territory." The words hit Kale harder than anything said in the hall that night. The forbidden territory was land outside all pack law, a stretch of deep forest and broken hills where the wronged pack from decades ago was rumored to still live, hidden and bitter, waiting for a reckoning that never came. No alpha entered those lands and returned the same. Some did not return at all. Kale did not think, he simply moved. He left his crown on the table where it had been resting since he lowered it in the hall. He did not call for guards. He did not wake the council. He simply pulled on a traveling cloak, stepped through the side door of the keep, and ran into the dark forest alone, chasing a woman who had just refused to marry him, toward land that could kill them both. The night was cold and quiet, except for the sound of his own breathing and the crunch of leaves beneath his feet. He followed her scent through familiar territory first, past the old oak where pack children used to play, past the river that marked the edge of Ashbourne land. Then the trees began to change. They grew taller, closer together, blocking out the moonlight until he was running almost blind, guided only by instinct and the faint trace of her scent still hanging in the cold air. By the time he crossed into the forbidden territory, dawn was still hours away. The forest here felt different, older, heavier, as if the land itself remembered every wrong ever done to it. Kale slowed his pace, listening. Somewhere ahead, he heard voices. He moved carefully now, staying low, until he reached the edge of a small clearing lit by a low fire. Sable stood in the center of it, her hands raised slightly, not in surrender but in caution. Around her stood a group of wolves he did not recognize, their eyes sharp with old anger, their stances tense and ready. An older wolf stepped forward, his face lined with scars that told stories Kale could only guess at. "You come into our land alone, Voss," he said, his voice low and rough, "after everything your family took from us." "I did not know," Sable said. "Not until weeks ago. I came because I wanted to see the truth for myself, not hide from it like everyone before me." "Truth does not return our homes," the old wolf said. "Truth does not return the wolves we lost." Kale's heart pounded. He could see it now, the way the group's anger was rising, fed by decades of silence finally being broken. He stepped out from the trees before he could think better of it. "She is right that she did not know," Kale said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "But I am the one whose bloodline made the choice that hurt you. If someone must answer for it, let it be me." Every eye in the clearing turned to him. The old wolf's gaze sharpened with recognition. "The new Alpha King," he said slowly, "come to beg for the woman who refused your crown." "I did not come to beg," Kale said. "I came because she should not carry a debt that is not hers alone to pay, and because I could not let her face this alone, whether she wanted my crown or not." Sable looked at him then, something shifting in her expression, surprise mixing with something softer beneath it. The old wolf studied Kale for a long moment. "Your grandfather sat where you stand now, once," he said. "He made promises too, then he broke them." "I cannot undo what my grandfather did," Kale said, "but I can stand here without a crown, without guards, without anything protecting me except the truth, and tell you that the silence ends tonight. Whatever price is owed, I will help pay it. Land, resources, a place at every future council where decisions are made. Not because it is easy, but because it is right." The clearing was silent except for the crackle of the fire. Sable stepped closer to Kale's side, not touching him, but close enough that the two of them stood together, facing the wronged pack as equals rather than strangers. "We do not want more silence," the old wolf finally said. "We want to be seen. We want our names spoken in your histories instead of erased from them." "Then they will be," Kale said. "I promise you that publicly, before my own council, before hers." He looked at Sable. "Before everyone." The old wolf's eyes moved between them, weighing the offer, weighing the years of anger against the small, fragile hope of being heard at last. Finally, he nodded once, sharp and final. "We will speak again when the sun rises fully, not as enemies, not yet as friends, but as wolves willing to listen." The tension in the clearing loosened, though it did not disappear entirely. The other wolves stepped back from the fire, murmuring among themselves, while Sable and Kale stood side by side, the weight of the night finally beginning to lift from their shoulders. They walked back toward the border together as the sky began to lighten from black to deep blue. Neither spoke for a long while. It was Sable who finally broke the silence. "You left your crown behind," she said. "I did not need it here," Kale answered. "I needed to be a wolf who could stand in front of people I had wronged and offer something real. A crown would not have helped with that." Sable was quiet for a moment. "I refused you, because I thought accepting meant losing myself in something bigger than me." A political answer to a political problem. "I understand that now," Kale said. "I was angry when you said no. I thought it was pride. I did not understand until Ferris told me the truth." "And now?" she asked. "Now I think you were the only person brave enough to say what needed saying," Kale said. "Everyone else in that hall was ready to accept an arrangement built on silence. You were the only one who stopped and asked what it was truly built on." The first true light of morning broke over the tops of the trees as they reached the border marker between the Forbidden Territory and Ashbourne land. Sable stopped walking. Kale stopped beside her. "I still do not want a crown that is given to me," she said. "Not like that. Not in front of a hall full of people expecting an answer before I even understood the question." "Then I will not offer it that way again," Kale said. "If you ever choose to stand beside me, it will be because you chose it freely, in the open, with nothing hidden between us. Not because a hall full of people expected it." Sable studied him for a long moment, the morning light catching the last traces of exhaustion and relief on her face. "That is the first thing you have said tonight that sounds like the truth." "It is the truest thing I have said in a long time," Kale answered. They stood together at the border as the sun rose fully over the packlands, the forest behind them quiet and still, holding its long-buried secrets a little more gently now that they had finally begun to see daylight. Neither of them spoke of crowns again that morning. There was no need. What had begun as a refusal in a crowded hall had become something neither politics nor tradition could have created on its own. Something chosen freely, in the open, by two people willing to walk into forbidden places for the truth, and for each other. And that, in the end, was worth far more than any crown of silver and old branches ever could be.